My name is Kathy, and I am 58 years old. I live alone in a small house in suburban Ohio, the same house where my husband Harold and I raised our son. Harold passed away 6 years ago, and since then I thought I understood what loneliness felt like. But there is another kind of loneliness, the kind that comes from being surrounded by family, yet feeling invisible. One Thursday afternoon, my daughter-in-law sat at my kitchen table with her planner and made a declaration that changed everything. Before I begin this story, I would love to know where you are watching from today. Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you have ever felt like your family sees you as a convenience rather than a person, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Trust me, you will want to stay until the end of this one. What happened when they showed up at my door with their luggage might just surprise you. The house I live in is nothing fancy. It is a modest two-bedroom home with white siding and blue shutters, sitting on a quiet street where most of the neighbors have known each other for decades. Harold and I bought this house 32 years ago when Derek was just a toddler learning to walk. Back then, these walls echoed with laughter, with the sound of small feet running down the hallway, with Harold's voice calling everyone to dinner. Harold was the love of my life. We met at a church picnic when I was 23 years old. He was tall with kind eyes and a smile that made me feel safe. We got married after dating for just 8 months because, as Harold used to say, when you know, you know. And he was right. We had 30 years together, 30 years of building a life, raising our son, and dreaming about growing old side by side. But life had other plans. 6 years ago, Harold came home from work complaining of chest pain. I told him to sit down, that I would make him some tea. He sat in his favorite armchair, the brown leather one by the window, and he never got up again. The paramedics said it was a massive heart attack. He was gone before they could even get him to the hospital. I spent the first 2 years after his death in a fog. Some days I forgot to eat. Other days I could not get out of bed. The house felt too big, too empty, too full of memories. Every corner held a piece of Harold, from the garden he used to tend to the coffee mug he always used, the one with the chipped handle that I still cannot bring myself to throw away. But slowly, I learned to live again. I started attending a knitting group at the local church. I took up gardening, finding peace in the soil and the flowers that Harold had loved so much. I retired from my job as a secretary at a dental clinic after 28 years, and I discovered that I actually enjoyed the quiet. I had a small pension and some savings, enough to live comfortably without worrying too much. I thought I had found a new normal. I thought I understood my place in the world. What I did not understand was my place in my own family. My son Derek is 34 years old now. When he was a child, he was the sweetest boy you could imagine. He used to bring me wildflowers from the backyard and leave them on my pillow. He would sit with Harold for hours, learning to fix things around the house, learning to fish at the lake down the road. Derek was curious, kind, and deeply attached to both of us. I remember teaching him to ride his bicycle on the sidewalk outside this very house. He fell so many times, scraping his knees and elbows, but he never gave up. And when he finally rode all the way to the corner and back without falling, his face lit up like the sun. I can still see that face when I close my eyes. That was my Derek. That was the boy I raised. But somewhere along the way, I lost him. Derek went to college 2 hours away. He was the first in our family to get a degree, and Harold and I were so proud. We drove to his graduation, sat in the front row, and cried happy tears when they called his name. That was one of the last really happy memories I have of the three of us together. In his senior year, Derek met Megan. She was a business major from a wealthy family on the other side of the state. Her parents owned a chain of dry cleaning stores and a vacation home in Florida. Megan was pretty confident and very different from the girls Derek had dated before. She knew what she wanted, and she knew how to get it. They got married 2 years after graduation, a big wedding at a fancy venue that Megan's parents paid for. Harold and I sat at a table in the back, feeling out of place among the crystal chandeliers and the ice sculptures. But we smiled because Derek was happy, and that was all that mattered to us. After the wedding, things changed. Derek started calling less often. When he did call, it was usually because he needed something. Money for a deposit on an apartment. help moving furniture, advice on something Megan wanted him to ask about. The conversations were short, transactional. I kept telling myself that this was normal, that young married couples need space, that Derek had his own life now. But deep down, I felt the distance growing. Megan was always polite to me, but there was a coldness beneath the politeness. She would smile and say the right things, but her eyes never warmed up. She made small comments about my house, about how cozy it was, and the way she said cozy made it sound like an insult. She commented on my clothes, on my cooking, on the way I decorated for the holidays. Nothing was ever direct enough to call out, but everything was sharp enough to sting. I tried so hard to make her like me. I bought expensive birthday gifts, even when I could not really afford them. I cooked her favorite meals when they visited, even though I had to look up the recipes and buy ingredients I had never used before. I bit my tongue every time she said something hurtful, because I did not want to cause problems for Derek. And slowly, without me even realizing it, I became the person they called when they needed something. Not the person they called to check in. Not the person they invited to Sunday dinners. Just the person who was always available, always willing, always saying yes. Then came the grandchildren, and everything became more complicated. Emma is 7 years old now. She is smart and curious, with Derek's eyes and Megan's determined chin. She asks a million questions about everything, and I love answering every single one. When she was born, I thought my heart would burst with joy. I held her in the hospital room, this tiny, perfect creature, and I promised her I would always be there for her. Lucas came 3 years later. He is 4 now, a whirlwind of energy and mischief. He runs everywhere, climbs everything, and has no fear whatsoever. He exhausts me within minutes, but his laugh makes it all worth it. He has Harold's smile, that same crooked grin, and sometimes when I look at him, I have to catch my breath. And then there is baby Lily. She is 18 months old, just learning to walk still, waking up multiple times a night. She is sweet and cuddly, but she demands constant attention. You cannot take your eyes off her for a second, or she will find something dangerous to put in her mouth. I love these children with my whole heart. They are the best parts of Derek, the parts that remind me of the boy he used to be. But taking care of all 3 of them at once is not easy for a woman my age. After a weekend with them, my back aches for days. I cannot sleep properly because I am listening for every sound. My blood pressure spikes from the stress of keeping them safe and entertained and fed. But I never complained, not once, because I was afraid that if I complained they would think I was a bad grandmother. I was afraid they would stop bringing the children to see me at all. So I said yes every time they asked, even when my body was screaming no. And they asked a lot. The first time I realized something was wrong was 5 years ago, right after Emma turned 2. Derek called me on a Tuesday evening, 3 days before they were supposed to leave for his cousin's wedding in California. His voice was casual, like he was asking me to pass the salt. "Mom," he said, "Megan and I need you to watch Emma while we are at the wedding. We will drop her off Friday morning and pick her up the following Sunday." I was sick at the time. I had caught a bad flu that had been going around, and I was running a fever of 102 degrees. My whole body ached. I could barely get out of bed to make myself soup. I told Derek I was not feeling well. I suggested they hire a babysitter or ask one of Megan's friends. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and then I heard Megan's voice in the background, sharp and impatient. She said something I could not quite hear, and Derek sighed. "Mom," he said, "we really need you. There is no one else. It is only for 9 days. 9 days, with a 2-year-old, while running a fever." I should have said no. Every part of me wanted to say no, but Derek sounded so stressed, and I did not want to let him down. So I said yes, and I spent the next 9 days taking care of Emma, while feeling like I might collapse at any moment. I gave her medicine to help her sleep, because I was too weak to chase her around. I let her watch more television than I should have because I could not play with her properly. I barely ate because I had no appetite and no energy to cook. By the time Derek and Megan came back, I had lost 8 pounds and looked like a ghost. They walked in the door looking tanned and relaxed from California. Megan was wearing a new dress and talking about the wonderful hotel they had stayed at. Derek grabbed Emma's bag and headed for the car without even asking how I was feeling. The only thing Megan said to me was, "She seems cranky. Did you not follow her nap schedule?" I stood in my doorway and watched them drive away, and I told myself that next time would be different. Next time they would appreciate what I did for them. But next time was not different. It was worse. 3 years ago, Megan decided she wanted to celebrate their 5th wedding anniversary with a trip to Mexico. 10 days at an all-inclusive resort, just the two of them. Romance and relaxation, she called it. And of course the children would stay with me. By then there were 2 of them. Emma was 4, and Lucas was 1 right in the middle of teething. He cried constantly, waking up every 2 hours through the night inconsolable unless he was being held and rocked. Emma was going through a phase where she wanted constant attention and would throw tantrums if she did not get it. I tried to talk to Derek before they left. I told him I was not sure I could handle both children alone for 10 days. I suggested they shorten the trip or hire some help to come in during the day. Derek listened, nodded, and then said that Megan had already booked everything and it was non-refundable. Those 10 days nearly broke me. Lucas cried so much that I started crying with him. Emma demanded activities and outings that I was too exhausted to provide. I did not sleep more than 3 hours a night the entire time. By day 6, my hands were shaking so badly that I could barely pour a glass of water. By day 8, I noticed my heart was doing something strange, skipping beats and racing at odd times. The day after Derek and Megan came back to pick up the children, I went to my doctor. He took my blood pressure and frowned. He asked me about my stress levels, about my sleep, about what had been going on. When I told him, he shook his head slowly. "Mrs. Kathy," he said, "you need to take care of yourself. Your blood pressure is dangerously high. If you keep going like this, you are going to end up in the hospital. Or worse." I went home that day with a prescription for blood pressure medication and a pamphlet about stress management. I put the pamphlet in a drawer and never looked at it again. And the next time Derek and Megan asked me to watch the children, I said yes. Then there was the refrigerator incident. Last year, my refrigerator died. It just stopped working one morning, everything inside going warm and starting to spoil. I had been saving money for months to replace it because I knew it was old and would not last forever. I had almost enough saved up, just a couple $100s short. That same week, Derek called. Megan's car needed repairs, he said. Something with the transmission expensive and urgent. They were short on cash because of some bills. Could I help out? I looked at the jar on my counter where I had been collecting money for the refrigerator. I thought about the spoiled food I had just thrown away, about the cooler full of ice I was using to keep my groceries cold. And then I thought about my son, about how stressed he sounded, about how I had always promised to help him when he needed it. I gave him the money. For the next 2 months, I lived without a refrigerator. I kept perishables in a cooler with ice that I had to buy every other day. I ate a lot of canned food and crackers. I lost weight because nothing tasted good, and shopping was so complicated. 3 weeks after I gave Derek the money, I was scrolling through my phone, and I saw a picture Megan had posted on social media. She was holding up a designer handbag, the kind that costs more than my monthly grocery budget. The caption said, "Treat yourself Tuesday." I stared at that picture for a long time. My hands were cold from handling the ice in my cooler. My back ached from bending over to dig through it. And there was Megan smiling with her expensive purse bought with money that might as well have come from my pocket. I did not say anything. I never said anything. I just added it to the list of hurts I carried inside me, the list that was getting longer every year. There were so many other times. The emergency babysitting calls when Megan had a meeting she forgot about. The last-minute pickups from school when they could not make it. The birthday parties I planned and cooked for without ever being thanked. The holidays I spent alone because they chose to be with Megan's family instead. Each time I told myself it was fine. I told myself this is what mothers do. I told myself that someday they would realize how much I sacrificed and they would appreciate me. But that day never came. And slowly, I started to realize that it never would. Not unless something changed. Not unless I changed it. The change started with Patricia. Patricia has been my best friend since high school. We met in sophomore year English class, bonded over our shared hatred of Shakespeare, and have been inseparable ever since. We were bridesmaids at each other's weddings. We held each other's hands through childbirth, through divorce in her case, through Harold's death in mine. She is the one person in the world who knows me better than I know myself. 2 months ago, Patricia came over for our regular Tuesday tea. We sat in my kitchen, the same kitchen where Megan would later make her announcement, and I found myself telling Patricia everything. The babysitting, the money, the way I felt invisible to my own son, the way Megan treated me like hired help. Patricia listened without interrupting. She stirred her tea slowly, her eyes never leaving my face. When I finally stopped talking, she set down her spoon and looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. "Kathy," she said, "do you hear yourself? Do you hear what you are describing?" I did not understand what she meant. "They are using you," she said. "Derek and Megan. They are treating you like a free babysitter and a personal bank. They are not treating you like a mother. They are not treating you like a person." I started to protest. I said Derek loved me. I said he was just busy, just stressed, just trying to balance his marriage and his work and his children. I made all the excuses I had been making for years. Patricia held up her hand. "When was the last time Derek called you just to talk?" she asked. Not to ask for something, not to arrange babysitting, just to ask how you were doing. I opened my mouth to answer, and then closed it again. I could not remember. I genuinely could not remember the last time my son had called me without needing something from me. That is what I thought Patricia said. And you know what that means? It means something is broken, and you are the only one trying to fix it. We sat in silence for a while. The kitchen clock ticked. Outside, a bird sang in the maple tree that Harold had planted 20 years ago. I felt something shifting inside me, something that had been stuck for a very long time. "You know what we should do?" Patricia said suddenly. "We should take a trip. Just the two of us. Like we used to talk about before life got in the way." I laughed. The idea seemed ridiculous. I could not just take a trip. What if Derek needed me? What if the children got sick? What about my responsibilities? Patricia leaned across the table and took my hands. "What responsibilities?" she asked. "The responsibility to be available whenever they snap their fingers. The responsibility to put your whole life on hold for people who do not even ask if you are okay. Kathy, you are 58 years old. You are healthy, you have savings, you have a best friend who loves you. What are you waiting for?" I did not have an answer. Over the next few weeks, Patricia and I started planning. Her sister Martha lives in Clearwater, Florida, in a little house just a few minutes from the beach. Martha had been inviting Patricia to visit for years, and now Patricia was finally going to take her up on it. And she wanted me to come along. The plan was simple. We would drive down together, taking our time, stopping at places we had always wanted to see. Our first stop would be Savannah, Georgia, a city I had dreamed about visiting ever since I saw pictures of its beautiful squares and moss-covered oak trees. Then we would continue on to Clearwater, where we would spend a week relaxing on the beach, eating good food, and remembering what it felt like to be happy. I felt like a teenager planning a secret adventure. I researched hotels in Savannah, looking at pictures and reading reviews, until I found the perfect one. I bought a new suitcase, a beautiful teal blue one, that made me smile every time I looked at it. I went shopping for summer clothes, something I had not done in years. I got my hair trimmed and bought new sunscreen and downloaded audiobooks for the drive. I did not tell Derek and Megan about any of this. It was not that I was hiding it exactly. It was more that I knew what would happen if I told them. They would find a way to make me feel guilty. They would need something urgently right before I was supposed to leave. They would guilt me into canceling like they had guilted me out of so many things before. So I kept quiet. I made my plans. I asked my neighbor Carol to water my plants and keep an eye on the house. And I counted down the days until I would finally do something just for me. The night before I was supposed to leave, I could barely sleep. I lay in bed looking at the ceiling, my heart racing with excitement and fear. Part of me still felt guilty, like I was doing something wrong by putting myself first. But another part of me, a part that had been silent for too long, felt alive for the first time in years. I thought about Harold, about what he would say if he could see me now. Harold had always encouraged me to stand up for myself. He used to get frustrated when I let people take advantage of my kindness. More than once he had told me that I mattered too, that my needs were just as important as everyone else's. I think Harold would have been proud of me. I think he would have told me it was about time. I finally fell asleep around midnight, dreaming of ocean waves and Spanish moss, and the open road stretching out ahead of me. Thursday afternoon started like any other day. I was in my bedroom quietly organizing my suitcase, making sure I had everything I needed for the trip. My heart was light. In less than 24 hours, Patricia and I would be on the road heading south toward adventure and freedom. Then I heard a car pull into my driveway. I quickly pushed my suitcase into the closet and went to the front door. Through the window, I saw Derek's SUV. My stomach dropped. They never came over without calling first. This could not be good. I opened the door to find Megan already walking up the path, a leather-bound planner tucked under her arm. Derek followed a few steps behind his shoulders, hunched in that way they always were when Megan was in charge. In the car, I could see Emma's face pressed against the window, waving at me. "Hello," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. "This is a surprise." Megan did not acknowledge my greeting. She walked past me into the house like she owned it, heading straight for the kitchen. Derek gave me an apologetic look but said nothing. He just followed his wife and I followed him, my heart beating faster with every step. In the kitchen, Megan sat down at my table. She set her planner in front of her and opened it to a page marked with a pink sticky note. There was a picture of a cruise ship pasted onto the page, surrounded by hearts and exclamation points. I stood in the doorway waiting. Derek leaned against the counter, his eyes fixed on the floor. "Our anniversary is Saturday," Megan announced without looking up. 8 years. We booked a cruise to the Caribbean. 7 days all-inclusive. We leave Friday morning. She said it like she was reading a weather report. No emotion, no preamble, just facts. I nodded slowly. "That sounds lovely," I said. "I hope you have a wonderful time." Finally, Megan looked up at me. Her eyes were the same cool gray they had always been, calculating and confident. "You will watch the children while we are gone," she said. "We will drop them off Friday morning before we head to the port. You will have them for the full week." I felt the words hit me like a physical force. Not a question, not a request, a statement, a command. For a moment I could not speak. I looked at Derek, hoping he would say something, hoping he would at least pretend this was a conversation rather than a dictation. But he just stood there studying his shoes, like they held the secrets of the universe. I took a deep breath. "I am sorry," I said, and my voice came out stronger than I expected. "I cannot do that. I have plans." Megan's eyebrows rose slightly. It was the only sign of surprise she showed. "Plans," she repeated. "What kind of plans?" "I have a trip scheduled with my friend Patricia," I said. "We have been planning it for months. We leave Friday morning." There was a long pause. Megan looked at me like I had just told her I was moving to Mars. "A trip," she said flatly. "You are going on a trip?" "Yes." "Where?" "Florida," I said. "Savannah first, then Clearwater. Patricia's sister has a house there." Megan laughed. It was not a kind laugh. It was the laugh of someone who could not believe they had to deal with something so absurd. "You are 58 years old," she said. "What do you need a vacation for? You are retired. Every day is a vacation." I felt my face flush with anger, but I kept my voice steady. "Being retired does not mean I do not deserve time for myself," I said. "I have the right to make plans. I have the right to say no." Derek finally spoke up. "Mom," he said, his voice tired, "cannot you just postpone your trip? We already booked everything. It is non-refundable." I looked at my son. This man I had raised, this boy who used to bring me flowers. When had he become someone who only saw me when he needed something? "So is my hotel reservation," I said. "And Patricia is counting on me. I cannot cancel at the last minute." Megan stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "This is ridiculous," she said. "You are their grandmother. This is your responsibility." I felt something snap inside me. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just a quiet breaking of something that had been strained for too long. "I am their grandmother," I said. "I love them more than you will ever know. But I am not their babysitter. I am not your backup plan for when you want to take a vacation. I am a person, Megan. I have my own life. And I am telling you clearly and directly that I cannot watch the children this weekend. The silence that followed was deafening. Megan stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Derek looked up from the floor, his expression somewhere between shock and something else. Something that might have been the beginning of understanding. "We will figure something out," Megan said finally. Her voice was cold. "This is not over." She picked up her planner and walked out without another word. Derek hesitated, opening his mouth like he wanted to say something, but then he just shook his head and followed his wife. I stood alone in my kitchen, listening to their car drive away. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From something else. Something that felt like freedom. I walked to the phone and called Patricia. "It happened," I said. "I told them no." I could hear the smile in her voice. "How does it feel?" I thought about it for a moment. "Terrifying," I admitted. "But also wonderful." "Good," Patricia said. "Now get some sleep. We have a long drive tomorrow." After I hung up, I went back to my bedroom and pulled my suitcase out of the closet. I looked at it for a long time, this teal-blue symbol of a life I was finally claiming for myself. Then I sat down and wrote a note. Friday morning arrived with clear skies and the smell of spring in the air. I woke at 5, long before my alarm was set to go off. Sleep had come in fits and starts, interrupted by dreams I could not quite remember, and a buzzing anxiety that lived somewhere between my chest and my throat. I made coffee in my quiet kitchen, watching the sky lighten from deep purple to soft pink through the window over the sink. Harold used to love this time of day. He would sit at this very table with his newspaper reading aloud, bits that he found interesting or funny. The house felt extra empty without him on mornings like this. But today was different. Today the emptiness did not feel sad. It felt like possibility. I showered and dressed in the new clothes I had bought for the trip. Navy blue capris, a white blouse with tiny flowers embroidered on the collar, comfortable walking shoes that I had broken in over the past few weeks. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror and hardly recognized the woman staring back at me. She looked excited. She looked alive. By 6:30, my suitcase was by the front door, and I was making one final check of the house. Windows locked, appliances unplugged, thermostat adjusted. I had left a key with Carol next door, along with detailed instructions about the plants. And on the kitchen table I left the note. I had thought carefully about what to write. Part of me wanted to pour out everything I was feeling, all the hurt and frustration and sadness that had been building for years. But that was not what this note was for. This note was simple, direct, and final. "I have gone to Florida with Patricia. I will be back in 10 days. Please do not worry about me, and please do not expect me to watch the children because I am not here." I signed it simply Kathy. Not Mom, not Grandma, just Kathy. The person I was before I became everyone else's solution to their problems. At 7 sharp, Patricia's silver sedan pulled into my driveway. I watched her get out, stretching after what must have been an early morning for her too. She was wearing a bright yellow sundress and oversized sunglasses, looking like she was already on vacation. I grabbed my suitcase, took one last look around my house, and walked out the front door. "Ready?" Patricia asked as I approached the car. "More than ready," I said. We loaded my suitcase into the trunk next to hers and climbed into the car. Patricia had made a road trip playlist on her phone, and as we pulled out of my driveway, the first notes of a song we had loved in high school came through the speakers. I started to laugh. Then Patricia started to laugh. And suddenly, we were 2 teenage girls again, heading off on an adventure, leaving our troubles behind us. As we drove out of town, I watched the familiar streets slide past. The grocery store where I had shopped for 30 years. The church where Harold and I had gotten married. The park where I had pushed Derek on the swings when he was small. In my purse, my phone started to buzz. I pulled it out and looked at the screen. Derek. I let it go to voicemail. It buzzed again. And again. Then a text from Megan. "Where are you?" "We are coming by this morning." I turned off my phone and slipped it back into my purse. Patricia glanced at me. "Everything okay?" "Everything is perfect," I said. And I meant it. 2 hours later, while Patricia and I were singing along to oldies and eating gas station snacks, Derek and Megan pulled into my driveway. I was not there to see it, of course, but I can picture it perfectly. Megan stepping out of the car first, her face set in that determined expression she always wore when she expected to get her way. Derek following behind, probably on his phone, probably avoiding eye contact with his wife. They had the children with them. All three of them, along with 2 large suitcases, a diaper bag, a portable crib, and a cooler full of snacks. They had come prepared for a week. They had come expecting me to take care of everything just like I always did. But the house was empty. Megan rang the doorbell. No answer. She knocked. Still nothing. She tried calling my phone and went straight to voicemail. That was when Carol came out of her house next door, watering can in hand. "Oh, hello," she said cheerfully. "Are you looking for Kathy?" "Yes," Derek said. "Do you know where she is?" Carol smiled. "She went to Florida, left this morning. Such an exciting trip. She has been looking forward to it for weeks." I can imagine the look on Megan's face. The shock, the disbelief, the anger. "Florida," she repeated. "That is impossible. She knew we needed her this weekend." Carol shrugged. "Well, she mentioned something about that when she gave me the key. Said you might stop by. She left a note inside if you want to take a look." Carol handed over the spare key, and Derek unlocked the front door. They walked into my house, the children trailing behind them, and found their way to the kitchen. The note was right where I had left it, propped against the salt shaker in the middle of the table. "I have gone to Florida with Patricia. I will be back in 10 days. Please do not worry about me. And please do not expect me to watch the children, because I am not here. Kathy." According to Carol, who told me everything when I got back there, was a very long silence after they read it. Then Megan started making phone calls. Then she started yelling. Derek just stood there staring at the note like he was trying to decode a message in a foreign language. "She actually left," Megan said, her voice rising. "She actually left. I cannot believe she did this to us." But Derek said nothing. He was looking around my kitchen, really looking at it for what might have been the first time in years. At the old refrigerator that I had finally been able to replace. At the worn tablecloth that I had been meaning to throw away. At the picture on the wall of Harold and me on our wedding day, young and hopeful and full of dreams. He was starting to see something. Starting to understand something that had been invisible to him for far too long. And I was already in Georgia watching the Spanish moss sway in the breeze, feeling the sun on my face, learning what it meant to put myself first. We arrived in Savannah late Friday afternoon, just as the golden hour light was turning the old buildings into something out of a painting. I had seen pictures of this city before, but nothing could have prepared me for its beauty. The moss hanging from the ancient oak trees, the cobblestone streets worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, the grand old houses with their wrought iron balconies overflowing with flowers. Patricia and I checked into our hotel, a charming little bed and breakfast on one of the famous squares. Our room had tall windows that looked out onto the park, and when I opened them, I could hear a musician playing guitar somewhere nearby. We freshened up and walked to River Street for dinner. The restaurant Patricia had chosen sat right on the water, and we got a table on the deck where we could watch the boats going by. I ordered shrimp and grits, a dish I had always wanted to try, and it was the most delicious thing I had eaten in years. Over dinner, I told Patricia about the messages on my phone. I had finally turned it back on to let Carol know we arrived safely, and found 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Most of them were from Megan, each one angrier than the last. "How could you do this to us? This is so selfish. You have ruined everything. Real family shows up when they are needed." Derek had called a few times too, but his messages were shorter. "Mom, call me back. Mom, we need to talk. Mom, please." I read them all out loud to Patricia while we ate. "What are you going to do?" she asked. I thought about it while I watched a tugboat push a barge up the river. "Nothing," I said finally. "I am going to do nothing. They can figure it out themselves." "Good for you," Patricia said. And she raised her glass of sweet tea in a toast. That night, I slept better than I had in months, maybe years. Back in Ohio, Derek and Megan were not sleeping well at all. Their cruise was supposed to leave the next morning, but they had no one to watch the children. Megan called everyone she could think of. Her parents were in Europe and could not fly back in time. Her sister had plans she refused to cancel. Her friends all had excuses. Finally, they tried professional babysitters and nanny services. The prices shocked them. $200 a day for one child, more for multiple children. For 3 kids, including a toddler who still woke up at night, they were looking at nearly $400 daily, more than $2,000 for the week on top of the cost of the cruise itself. Megan refused to pay it. "That is more than the cruise cost," she said. "It is robbery." So they called the cruise line to see about canceling. But it was too late. Non-refundable. They lost their deposit, nearly $1,500 gone just like that. I learned all this later, pieced together from conversations with Derek and from Carol's observations. But on that Saturday morning, while Derek and Megan were fighting about whose fault this was, I was walking through Forsyth Park in Savannah, admiring the famous fountain and watching children chase pigeons on the grass. I felt a pang of guilt when I saw those children. I thought about Emma Lucas and little Lily. I wondered if they were confused, if they missed me, if they were okay. But then I reminded myself of something important. They had 2 parents, 2 healthy, capable adults who were perfectly able to take care of their own children. The fact that they had expected me to drop everything for them, the fact that they had not even asked that, was not my problem to solve. I was done solving everyone else's problems at the expense of my own happiness. Patricia and I spent 2 more days in Savannah. We toured the historic homes, took a ghost tour at night, ate pralines until we felt sick. I bought a watercolor painting of the river from a local artist, thinking it would look beautiful in my bedroom. And slowly, day by day, I felt something loosening in my chest. Something that had been tight and anxious for so long that I had forgotten what it felt like to breathe freely. On Tuesday morning, we drove to Florida. The landscape changed around us, from Georgia pines to Florida palms, from rolling hills to flat marshland. When I finally saw the ocean sparkling blue in the distance, I actually gasped. I had not seen the ocean in over a decade. Harold and I used to talk about taking a beach vacation after he retired, but he never got the chance. Seeing it now, I thought about him. I thought about all the plans we had made that we never got to keep. And instead of feeling sad, I felt grateful. Grateful that I was here. Grateful that I had not given up on living. Patricia's sister Martha was waiting for us at her house in Clearwater. She was a few years older than Patricia, with the same warm smile and the same no-nonsense attitude. Her house was small but comfortable, painted yellow, with white trim, surrounded by palm trees and tropical flowers. The beach was just a 5-minute walk away. For the next week, I did things I had not done in years. I woke up without an alarm. I drank my coffee on the porch, listening to the birds. I walked on the beach every morning, letting the waves lap at my feet, collecting shells that caught my eye. I read 3 novels, one after another, without anyone interrupting me. I learned to make key lime pie from Martha's secret recipe. I went to an outdoor concert where a local band played beach music and people danced under the stars. I stayed up late talking with Patricia and Martha about life and love and growing old and everything in between. And every day, my phone sat silent in my suitcase. I had stopped checking it. Whatever was happening back in Ohio could wait. On the 5th day, something unexpected happened. My phone rang, and for some reason, I answered it. It was Derek. His voice sounded different than I had ever heard it. Quiet, hesitant, almost small. "Mom," he said, "can we talk?" I looked out the window at the palm trees swaying in the breeze. I could have said no. I could have hung up and gone back to my vacation. But something in his voice made me pause. "I am listening," I said. And then Derek said something he had never said before. "I am sorry." The words hung in the air between us, traveling through hundreds of miles of phone lines, bridging a gap that had grown wider every year. "I am sorry," he said again. "For everything. For treating you like you were just there to help us. For not calling unless I needed something. For letting Megan talk to you like that. For not standing up for you. For all of it." I sat down on Martha's porch swing, my legs suddenly weak. Derek continued. This week has been hard, he said. Really hard. I had to take care of the kids by myself while Megan was angry about the cruise. And I realized something. I realized that you do this all the time. You take care of them for days on end, and you never complain. You never ask for anything in return. And we just take and take and take. He paused, and I could hear him breathing, could hear the emotion in his voice. I have been a terrible son, he said, and I am so sorry. For a long moment I could not speak. Tears were running down my face, but they were not sad tears. They were something else. Relief, maybe, or hope. Derek, I finally said I love you. I have always loved you, but I cannot keep being the person who gives everything and gets nothing back. I need to matter too. You do matter, he said. I know that now. I should have known it all along. We talked for almost an hour. He told me about the week, about how hard it had been, about how it had opened his eyes. He told me he had been thinking about Dad, about how disappointed Dad would be if he could see how Derek had been treating me. I told him about my trip, about Savannah and the beach, and learning to be happy again. I told him I was not ready to come home yet, that I needed this time for myself. And he said something that surprised me. Take all the time you need, Mom. You deserve it. When I hung up, Patricia was standing in the doorway watching me. Good conversation, she asked. I wiped my eyes and smiled. The best one I have had with him in years, I said. That night I sat on the beach and watched the sunset. The sky turned pink, then orange, then deep purple, and the first stars came out one by one. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt at peace with my family. Not because everything was fixed, but because something had finally shifted, something had changed. And I knew that whatever came next, I would face it as myself. Not as just a mother, not as just a grandmother, but as Kathy. A person who mattered, a person who deserved to be happy. I came home on a Wednesday, exactly 10 days after I had left. The drive back was long, but pleasant, filled with memories of the trip and plans for future adventures. Patricia and I talked about where we might go next year. Maybe Arizona to see the Grand Canyon. Maybe New England to watch the leaves change. The world suddenly felt full of possibilities. When I pulled into my driveway, I noticed something different right away. There were fresh flowers planted in the beds by the front porch. Bright red geraniums, my favorite. Someone had been taking care of things while I was gone, and not just Carol next door. I was still looking at the flowers when the front door opened and Emma came running out. Grandma, she yelled, throwing herself at my legs. You are back. I missed you so much. I knelt down and hugged her tight, breathing in the familiar smell of her strawberry shampoo. I missed you too, sweetheart, I said. More than you know. Derek was standing in the doorway holding Lucas in his arms. Lily was asleep in her car seat behind him. When he saw me looking, he gave me a small, uncertain smile. Welcome home, Mom, he said. I straightened up, still holding Emma's hand, and walked toward my house. Toward my son. You planted flowers, I said. He nodded. And I fixed the loose board on your porch step, and I cleaned out your gutters. There was a lot of stuff up there. I did not know what to say. These were things I had been meaning to do for months, things I had not had the energy or the help to tackle. Thank you, I finally managed. We went inside, and I saw that the house was cleaner than I had left it. Someone had vacuumed, wiped down the kitchen, done the dishes that had been sitting in the sink. There were fresh groceries in my refrigerator, including the fancy cheese I liked, but never bought for myself. Derek, I said you did not have to do all this. Yes, I did, he said. It is the least I could do. Emma tugged at my hand. Grandma, can we make cookies? The kind with the chocolate chips? I looked at Derek. He shrugged. I brought all the ingredients, he said, just in case. So we made cookies. All of us together, even Lucas, who mostly made a mess with the flour, but had the time of his life doing it. Lily woke up and I held her while the cookies baked, rocking her gently and remembering when Derek was that small, that trusting, that easy to love. It was the best afternoon I had spent with my family in years. Over the next few weeks, things continued to change. Derek started calling me every few days, not to ask for anything, just to talk. He asked about my day, about my knitting group, about what I was reading. Sometimes we talked about his father, sharing memories we had never shared before. And then, about a month after I came back from Florida, Megan came to see me. She showed up alone, without the children, without Derek. She stood on my porch looking uncomfortable, her designer handbag clutched in front of her like a shield. "Can I come in?" she asked. I led her to the kitchen, the same kitchen where she had demanded my compliance not so long ago. I made tea while she sat at the table tracing patterns in the wood with her fingernail. "I owe you an apology," she said finally. I set the tea down and sat across from her. I did not say anything. I just waited. "I have been thinking a lot," she said, "about how I have treated you. And talking to my mother, actually. She helped me see some things." She took a deep breath. "I grew up with nannies," she said. "My parents were always working. When I needed something, I called the staff. That was just how it was. And when Derek and I got married, I guess I thought that was how it would be with you too. That you were just there to help whenever we needed it." She looked up at me, and for the first time I saw something vulnerable in her eyes. "But you are not staff," she said. "You are his mother. You are their grandmother, and I treated you like an employee, like someone whose feelings did not matter. I am sorry for that. I really am." I sat with her words for a moment. I thought about all the times she had hurt me, all the dismissive comments and unreasonable demands. I thought about the years of feeling invisible and unappreciated, but I also thought about what holding on to that anger would cost me, and I decided it cost too much. "Thank you for saying that," I said. "It means a lot." We drank our tea together in something approaching companionable silence. When she left, she hugged me at the door, a real hug, not the stiff air kiss she usually gave me. It was a start. I still babysit my grandchildren sometimes. I love them, and I love spending time with them. But now it is different. Now they ask me first. Now they give me plenty of notice. Now they thank me when I say yes, and accept it gracefully when I say no. And I do say no sometimes. When I have plans with Patricia, when I am tired, when I just want a quiet day to myself. I say no without guilt, without apology, without feeling like I am failing someone. Because I finally understand something that took me 58 years to learn. Loving your family does not mean losing yourself. Being generous does not mean being a doormat. And the people who truly love you will not just take and take until there is nothing left. Patricia and I took another trip last month, this time to the Blue Ridge Mountains. We rented a cabin and spent a week hiking trails and sitting by the fire and talking about our lives. We are already planning our next adventure, a road trip along the California coast that Harold and I had always dreamed about. I think about Harold every day. I talk to his picture sometimes, telling him about what is happening, asking him what he thinks. I know he would be proud of me. I know he would be glad that I finally learned to stand up for myself. I started writing too. Just a little blog, nothing fancy, about finding yourself in the second half of life. About learning to put yourself first when you have spent decades putting everyone else first. About the courage it takes to say no, and the freedom that comes when you finally do. I have followers now. Women like me, mothers and grandmothers, who have given and given until they forgot who they were. They write to me with their own stories, their own struggles, their own moments of finally saying enough. Every message reminds me why I did what I did. Why leaving that note on my kitchen table was the best decision I ever made. I learned that the most important relationship you have is the one with yourself. When you abandon yourself to please others, you lose something precious that is very hard to get back. But it is never too late to start. If you are watching this and feeling like I used to feel invisible and undervalued and taken for granted, I want you to know something. You matter. Your dreams matter. Your needs matter. And you have every right to claim them. You do not have to go to Florida to find yourself. But you do have to be willing to leave your comfort zone, even if that comfort zone is a kitchen where people make demands and you always say yes. Write yourself a new story. One where you are not just the helper, the fixer, the one who gives and gives. One where you are the main character of your own life. Because that is what you deserve. That is what we all deserve. I would love to hear from you now. Have you ever felt taken for granted by your family? Have you ever had to say no to someone you love in order to say yes to yourself? Share your story in the comments below. Let us support each other. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and know they are not alone. Subscribe to this channel so you do not miss the next story. There are so many of us out there learning to live for ourselves after years of living for everyone else. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, please share this video with them. Sometimes all it takes is knowing that someone else has been there, someone else has made the hard choice, someone else has found their way to the other side. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. And remember, you are never too old to start a new chapter. Take care of yourself first, everything else will follow.